This contract was awarded to Zanen Dredging in January 1987 for the sum of £6.2 million. The method chosen by this contractor for placing the shingle was to pump it ashore directly from the dredger via a steel pipeline lying on the seabed. The 800mm diameter pipeline, nearly a kilometre in length, had first to be fabricated. This was carried out on the bank of the River Ouse, just to the north of Newhaven. Pipes were delivered to the temporary fabrication yard in 20-metre lengths, where they were then welded together. Several pipe-laying bulldozers, a crane and a tug lifted and launched the pipeline into the River Ouse. The pontoons shown here were to be used for beaching the shore end of the pipeline when it was in place at Seaford. The seaward end of the pipeline was to terminate at a large swivel pontoon. This pontoon was fabricated in Rotterdam and towed across the channel to the North Quay at Newhaven. The completed steel pipeline was then floated down the river to be joined with this pontoon. The manoeuvring and alignment of the long pipeline in the river to enable this connection to be made was certainly one of the more difficult operations in the assembly. After waiting over 2 weeks for suitable calm weather, on the 13th of April, the long pipeline and all its associated pontoons were towed down the River Ouse, through Newhaven Harbour and out into Seaford Bay. The shore end of the pipeline was beached, while the swivel pontoon at the seaward end was manoeuvred over a prepared position on the seabed. Up to this time, the pipeline had been kept afloat by pumping compressed air into it. Once in position, the air was slowly let out, and the pipeline and pontoons were sunk onto the seabed. The pipe arm coming up from the swivel pontoon was designed so it could rotate through 360 degrees. This was to enable the dredger to swing around the pontoon with the changes in the tide. To complete the delivery pipeline, a flexible floating rubber pipe was connected to the arm from the swivel pontoon. On April the 15th, the ship Barent Zanen arrived to commence delivering shingle. Working on a 12-hour cycle, the ship steamed empty to the Ouse bank some 35 kilometres away, dredged and loaded the shingle, returning to arrive at Seaford just before each high tide and connected up to the flexible rubber pipe. The ship's powerful pumps then emptied the 10,000 tons load of shingle in 4 to 5 hours, and the cycle started again. The shingle had to be mixed with large quantities of water and pumped at high velocity in order to avoid blocking the pipeline. When the ship was pumping, shingle was delivered at a rate approaching 1 ton every second. Nowhere before in the world has shingle been pumped such a long distance. Despite having to overcome many unforeseen engineering problems, progress was rapid, and a 100-metre length of new beach was created every week. After 6 months, all 2.5 kilometres of the beach had been placed. Southern Water's scheme to protect Seaford was complete 1 year ahead of schedule at a final cost of £9 million. £5 million of this sum was provided as a special grant by the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, with the remainder coming from county rates. On October the 16th, 1987, just as the scheme was finishing, the worst storm in 200 years hit southern England. The impressive performance of the beach that day in preventing any flooding from the sea confirms that the correct solution to Seaford's sea defence problem has been found. Also, a marvellous new